Laura, I am so excited to be speaking to you about your experience of the 6-day emotional balance research. I've really been so just grateful to have seen your journey and really excited to have seen your journey to go throughout the course and all the benefits that you have experienced as a result of it. So thank you so much for speaking to me today about your experience of it. Really excited.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's been amazing. So,
Oh, so glad to hear that. Laura, I'm wondering, maybe a good place to start is just by introducing yourself and just saying who you are, what you do. That might be a good place to start today.
sure. Yeah. So I'm a mom. I have two kids, and I live in Canada. And I work as a counselor also. So, and the last several years, I've been a gardener. That's been kind of my main, my main work focus. I'm kind of balancing, yeah, physical work and then more emotional work. So, just
Mhm.
do a little bit of that.
Fantastic. Lots of spinning plates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, Laura, and I guess what might be a next place to go to is thinking about why you signed up for the program. What were your challenges? What were you experiencing at the time that you thought, you know what, I'd like to get some support?
I was actually at yeah, it's funny when I was thinking about this, I was at the point where I'd asked for a referral to talk to a gynecologist about getting a hysterectomy. So I was really at this point of just totally fed up with the menstrual cycle and the way that I had this diagnosis of PMDD, and I just felt like it was really hopeless and really kind of draining my life. And it was almost like this trauma every month where it was like I could see it coming and I was just like dreading how it was going to throw everything out of balance for me.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was to the point where the time that I wasn't in the luteal phase, I was just feeling really depressed anyway, even though I wasn't really experiencing these symptoms. I was just kind of dreading it and wondering, like, can I like have a normal life? And yeah, so it was a really rough point. But I think there's also this point, this sort of like, actually, I think there's this term about creative hopelessness. I think it's like a
Mhm.
where you just get to this point where you're like, "Ah, I can't do this anymore," you know? And I really
Right.
kind of was at that point. And I had also come to this point of sort of deciding I'm going to admit that this is a problem for me because I think for a lot of years, like I'm 43 now, but this diagnosis is just like 6 years. But I think I've had this since age 13, but I was just sort of like, I have to keep this under wraps. I have to hide this from everybody. I have to like not let people see that I'm struggling, you know? And there's this point of just being like, "Ah, I'm struggling, you know,
Yeah.
I'm really struggling and have been for a long time. So at that point, I started kind of reaching out in the IAPMD website and some of the Hey Peers groups and like just looking at people out in the world who had this diagnosis and how they're coping.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't coping really well. And that was discouraging. So, yeah, so in speaking to you and just talking about kind of researching what's out there, and then you were putting this group together, and I was just like, well, I need connection and I need support, and I don't know what to do next. And I want to work with somebody who's kind of, this is this focus and has some hope and has realistic ideas of like what
Mhm.
this could be, not sort of just like band-aid solutions or this sort of black and white feeling of like, okay, I just want to get rid of my uterus,
Right.
and that's the solution because it's more complex. And I mean, I
Mhm.
think that is the solution for people. I'm not saying that's not okay to take that route, but
Sure.
yeah, but I just sort of said like, well, if I'm going there, then why not try everything? So yeah, I was quite desperate to be honest. But I think I reached this point of saying like, okay, I'm also open.
Mhm. Mhm.
I whatever, to really let go of some old stuff that isn't serving me. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's a scary place because then it was like, what's the new what's gonna replace that? Like how do I,
Mhm.
yeah.
Gosh, I'm so with you. And I think what you're talking about being in this really desperate place, that's often what we can experience. I've been doing this for a really long time. I'm not wanting to really admit that to myself or to other people. I don't want to acknowledge it, right? That's really part of the journey. And then, right, here is this diagnosis. What do I do with it? I've tried all of these things. Do I go all the way to, hysterectomy? A scary place, isn't it? A lot of the really dark places that we get into when that is happening. So I'm hearing the desperation. I'm hearing this feels really hard. Okay, what is there that I can try to get some support and awareness of what's happening, some tools and strategies. Okay, how do I get out of this dark place to a place that feels better? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've had that initial conversation. This is the place that you are at. And then you join the program. I'm just really keen to hear about, obviously, now looking back, you completed the program at the end of last year. It's been a little while. So it's really interesting speaking to you at this point because you've done the program and it's been a good few months since then. What's your experience been like? What did the program do for you?
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been thinking about this. Well, I mean, over the last couple months, because it's interesting to seeing how every cycle I kind of can like go back in and then go back around and sort of say like, huh, this feels different, or this is what I used to get really scared of. And now I have this compassion, or I have this sense that even just that, even though the group, like, and I haven't been able to make all the meetings, but even though the group's not meeting regularly, but I just have this kind of inner sense that I'm not alone in it, that there's sort of like this other group of supportive women who also are not necessarily perfect and struggling too, but just that we're all kind of working through a way of engaging with our cycles differently. And definitely I think a huge shift is just like having that self-compassion, having that sense that which you definitely bring to the group. You create this real environment that's really safe and sort of welcoming of whatever comes up, and that makes it less scary or less overwhelming. And so, I think at the beginning, that was a big part of just trusting my own inner self with all these parts of myself. And it kind of was replicated in the group where it was like trusting to share my experience and then have the group share. And and their sharing is sometimes really similar and really like validating, like, oh, I've been there and you're not alone. And then other times it's like, oh, it's different for other people. And we all have our own unique ways of making sense of what our cycle brings. But then, yeah, not feeling alone in it has been huge, to the point where it's like I've kind of got those internal voices and sense of like not feeling alone. So I don't necessarily need to reach out to the group as much as I really felt desperate that I needed that support.
That is so good to hear, really hearing going from that. This feels desperate to, you know what, I don't need to be there regularly to actually access the support. This is exactly what the goal of therapy and coaching is as well, right? Like people come to coaching and therapy to maybe hear another perspective and to develop that voice that can be an inner voice, right? My, coach or therapist kind of brings this for me and now I can internalize it and then don't necessarily need to access that support on a regular basis. That is just gold hearing that is something that you've taken away.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to just as I work as a counselor and I'm a giver and I'm a mom and I'm giving all the time. And that sort of act of just being able to like receive support and
Mm.
put myself out there in a way that's really not very pretty, not perfect, and then be like, okay, this part is welcome too. And yeah. So that
Yeah.
and that is transformative, I think, and very healing. Yeah.
I'm so with you. And I love when you're talking about self-compassion as is such a big piece, not just kind of this is what we look in the course, but as throughout, just really developing that self-compassionate voice. Here I am with all of my mess and all of my imperfections in a very human form, right? And I bring kindness and compassion to myself and really build that kind inner voice. So I love that that feels like that is something that's really present there for you.
Yes. Yeah. And not to like sort of think that it's like an overnight change, because we also worked with a lot of the obstacles and the things that get in the way of really really feeling compassionate towards yourself, and there's all kinds of challenges there, but it's also kind of normal and like nothing to be ashamed of. And even though, yeah, that might, when you're alone with it, it feels unbearable or it feels so scary. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely with you. And I think what you're talking about there is this, we always talk about how things change, things, it's not static. The way we function, the way we are built changes, right? So even self-compassion and how we approach ourselves, as we all know, when we struggle with PMDD, that changes, right? And my self-compassionate voice might be much louder a certain part of my cycle than the other. And that's okay. That's welcome. We bring compassion to that. Well, right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. A lot of people coming to this program are struggling with PMDD, the emotional roller coasters that we know very well, right? And really wanting to get to a place of reclaiming control and balance and confidence in their life and in their business. I'm wondering how this program and the ongoing support has impacted your sense of control and balance and confidence in your life and in your work as well.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's like it's a lot of, it's changed. So I think I had an idea in my mind that if I could just not have this roller coaster, I would have control. And so it's kind of, it's much more about just accepting that, like, there is this shift every cycle, every month, and things are constantly changing and moving, and that in that is sort of like the bigger picture is much wider, and it's my understanding of what I do have control of and what I don't, and what I'm willing to just accept and work with and sort of flow with rather than fight against, which is sort of where I was really struggling. And, and not like, I wouldn't say that I don't have, like, if I still would let myself get to a point where I'm really highly stressed and I'm really not aligned with my values and I'm really not taking care of myself and making sure I have lots of support, I would still be getting these PMDD symptoms. But I would say right now that I really feel like my cycle is actually a source of strength and a source of like resilience and helps me stay on track. And that sometimes means that I have to have a rest day. Like, it doesn't mean that I all of a sudden now have this perfect linear life where I can get everything done. But so yeah, I feel like I have control of that in a way. And also when things kind of come up and I have a day where it's like, oh, I didn't think this part of my cycle was going to throw me off, then it feels like in the past that would have set me off. I would have thought, "Oh my gosh, I've totally lost control." Whereas now I'm like just kind of curious, like, "Okay, what does this mean? Or what do I have to look at?" Maybe it's not even my inner winter, which is used to be really a critical time for me. Maybe it's more maybe like inner spring that's kind of going like, I did some work around like being playful or being silly or foolish in ways that are also welcome. So yeah, there's like so much, there's this expansion of so much more richness, and it doesn't look the way that I pictured it. It doesn't look the way that I thought it would, but it's given me this really new perspective of, it's kind of revolutionary, really. Is it like, how can I get work done, enjoy my family, enjoy myself, have enough time for me, and find that balance while also accepting that my body and my menstrual cycle are going to move me through very different feelings, needs, sensations, sort of states of consciousness, even awareness. So, but yeah, I feel like overall, I don't know if I'm even answering the question. I feel like overall, I have like, I have been, yeah.
Oh, Laura, I'm so moved when I am hearing this, when you're talking about that shift from, desperation and my cycle is a problem. And I, want to even go to that, thinking about having hysterectomy too. And I'm hearing you say there is strength. I see my menstrual cycle as a strength that I can tap into, the resources that I can kind of, take from that, and the curiosity that you're talking about. That is such a significant transformation. And when you're using that word revolutionary, I'm with you because having gone through that process myself, that my cycle is my enemy, to wow, this is such power and a resource I can tap into when I'm really connected with all parts of myself and my cycle, and how that changes. So hearing you say that, and the balance that brings, the, shift around what control means, right? Control, I'm hearing, is not rid of all of my symptoms, but there might be waves that we learn to ride, and we know how to be with the feelings and be kind to ourselves and have strategies and tools as how to be with all of that. And I'm really hearing you talk about, when this comes up, it might not be this is a terrible feeling I don't want to be with. Is you're right. Curiosity. What is that showing me? What do I need to pay attention to here? Right. So really reframing some of the experiences. So I love that. Thank you. So good to hear.
Yeah.
Keen to hear, obviously, a lot of the content is also focusing on some practical stuff around our businesses, our work. How do we support our work with working with in sync with our menstrual cycle? A lot of people ask questions around, if I have a week or 2 weeks out of the month when I'm really struggling to engage with my work, like how am I supposed to be running a business? So mindful of all of the things that you are doing and be mom at the same time. What's been your experience of that going through this course? How has that impacted your ability to, to work and to run your, your business?
Yeah, I think that like I said, especially in the last few months, I've taken on more things and I've just been kind of pleasantly surprised because there's still this sense that like, oh wow, am I gonna hit that stress point where I know I've taken on too much and I'm gonna panic and then start making foolish choices and, forget to take care of myself and then the whole thing's gonna feel overwhelming and it's gonna blow up because I've been there so many times. So, but I think that overall, like, I mean, I'm not going to say I don't have lots of moments where I think, whoa, like, this is stressful or, I'm more aware and just kinder to myself right away. Like, the times where you're really, I mean, I get this super clumsy thing where I'm just like bumping into things and hurting myself at like near the end of the month. And I'm just like kind of awkward. And I know that that's not the time to, like, for instance, put together a piece of furniture because it's just going to take like 10 hours instead of if I do it at a different time of the month, it'll take like half an hour. So that kind of stuff, I'm right on it. I'm just like, this is not the day to have the conversation with my ex about co-parenting. Like, just don't even send that email or whatever. Cause it'll be clumsy and I won't really get it right. And then I'll have a whole bunch of other issues, the fallout of those times that I've made. I think I'm just capable of kind of holding my bigger self in in control and letting these parts of me that are kind of like coming out feeling maybe like clumsy or feeling like critical or feeling snappy or overly excited or whatever and just being like, okay, well, let's make sure we take you and give you some rest. And next week, I'm going to put it in my planner to do the thing I need to do or do that research because I'll just be like much more keen to, take information in. And then other times where it's just like, I just need to like let myself be relaxed and like maybe play music or dance or go swimming. Like those are times where I'm not really cognitive. And so I'm picking and choosing the times to do those things so much more efficiently, or even playing with my kids too and letting the guilt go. Like if I have a day where I just have to rest and I can't engage with them in a way that's fun and playful, it's okay. I will have those days. And when I do, I'll do it. So yeah, I just really, there's a lot of forgiveness too, I think, where I recognize I used to be so hard on myself or even at work. Some days I'm going to be a little spacey and that's okay to show up. In fact, I even feel like now when I show up in work situations and I'm not 100% productive, 100% top like energy, whether it's physical work or whether it's emotional like engagement or cognitive engagement, like those things are not always at the same levels all the time, and that's okay. And I even feel like I'm kind of like out in the world letting people know this is me and I'm changing, shifting creature. And I
Mm,
think most people are. It gives other people permission. And so yeah, I'm feeling yeah, I'm feeling into those moments where I feel like, oh, the stress is getting too much. Well, like I notice it right away. It's sort of like I'm really sensitive to those currents in my body that just tell me something's off, or you're agreeing to something that you don't align with, or whatever. So because I'm doing those things, I'm not signing up for too much, or I'm not, you know, pushing myself too hard. So far it feels really sustainable and enjoyable, and like there's more pleasure and there's more, like letting go of things too, making mistakes, and then
mm,
kind of being with the mistake and being with that like wash of shame that might come up, and being like, it's okay, you
mm.
know? So it gives me so much more space to try new things and go out into the world in new ways, and know that I can make mistakes and be okay with it. It's not going to be devastating in a way that it used to be.
Mm.
So, yeah.
All right, I love that. I'm really hearing this sense of more freedom, right? So here I am. I can be with all of these parts of me. I can really tap in. I'm really hearing intimacy. I'm of knowing what I need, checking in, what's the right thing for me to do today, or how am I feeling? And we do a lot of that in the course, don't we? About what's happening in my body, what's happening with my emotional self, with my mind, what's the kind of vulnerable part here? How do I bring kindness and nourishing to those parts? So I'm really hearing that attunement. I know what I need and I give that to myself. I can be with some of the challenging feelings. And when I am, but like I said, I love that. I can let that wash over me. And
Mhm.
the freedom that gives in terms of there is more, yeah, courage to try something new. There is more joy, more play. And I love that. I know we've worked around that together, haven't we? Around accessing some play and bringing that joy alongside all of the other things. So that's so good to hear that that's something that you're really feeling, months and months after. We've
Mhm.
completed that first part of the session, obviously, with the ongoing support tapping into all of that. But that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. All right, a couple more questions before we finish. I'm wondering if there have been any results you weren't expecting from the course that maybe pleasantly surprised you.
Yeah, I guess I kind of like talked a bit about this idea that I think I thought, I imagined that like this roller coaster would just become like this straight path. And instead, it's really more about kind of embracing this, like the cyclical path, which is not a straight linear path. And also, I think because I work as a counselor, and so I think there are a lot of really useful tools. And I think I was applying them in a way that was a little bit mean, or sort of like it was almost like another task, another thing I have to do. And so I think what was really healing for me, like I said before, like just as a giver, is like being in a sort of a safe, supportive community that it's like we're all kind of receiving, and there's like this feedback from other group members who are just able to just like kind of give you like support and see you in your struggle and say like good job for, and celebrating the wins, and just reminding ourselves that there are all these really positive things we do, because I think we sometimes learn tools and then we're like, oh, I didn't use the tool when I needed it. And it's because the underlying sense of like supportive, compassionate kindness is missing there. And it's like, once that's there, it's like your nervous system and everything can just kind of like settle a little bit. And then you remember the tools and you're like, oh, yeah, right. Is this true? Is it rational? Is it helpful, or whatever is, going to help you? Or can I just like reshift to what values I care about, and what I'm, whatever my list of things that I know is going to be helpful, like just go back and do the 1%, do the thing that's going to help. So yeah, I guess I'm I'm still working with that. It's still shifting, because I think we live in a culture that really puts that pressure on to just say like, do more, do it harder, do it like, I think sometimes it's like, doing less and just being gentler is actually the key. And I think really having a group and having your support and like that sort of creating that space to be gentle with ourselves is a really powerful tool. Like just that kind of resonating sense of being safe and being seen and heard and accepted. And then you kind of feel that on your own outside of the group too. Or even like kind of imagine it in moments of distress. Just kind of like let yourself imagine, like, oh yeah, the group would see me in this way that's like, it's okay. It's normal. Yeah. Even if like maybe you go around and you tell somebody at work, oh, I'm just about to get my period. I'm really struggling. And they're just kind of like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Because that can be really lonely too when just feel like you're out in the world trying to kind of be your authentic self and other people don't see it. So it's nice to have that sense that like, okay, I'm seen in this way.
Mm.
Maybe I'll share this in the group and people will get what I'm talking about.
Love that, Laura. And I think that's one of the most valuable things, just being part of this group and having this ongoing support. Yes, there's all the bits we do around different modules and learning the strategies and all that's involved. And I think that's such an essential piece of that. But after that, having access to all of this, plus having access to ongoing support and accessing the group and really hearing the benefit in that and really continuing to connect with the group with that kind, compassionate base out there, but also within how that really is, yeah, the strategies are there and they're important to learn, but we have that bigger picture around. And I have it in this supportive context with the kindness to myself and how potent that is together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Just a final question, Laura. What would you tell to someone who is considering joining our community?
Yeah, I think that, you know, if you're ready to if you're ready and open to kind of like make this shift, this transformation, it's not like it's just magic, but I do think that when people are at that point of readiness, like reaching out to the right the right people that can kind of carry you along. So if like I mean if you're resonating with a lot of what you're putting out there, Helena, I think is important because you've really created this space and you have your own personal experience and then you have this amazing like clinical ability to really hold this really safe and like organized space that's very fluid at the same time and just lots of room and lots of hope. I think that's a really key part of being part of a group. It's just that it's like we're all at different stages and phases and all these life challenges come up and things, from one cycle to the next, things might be really difficult. And then even when they get better and then you get hopeful and then you're suddenly like, oh, wait a sec, am I backtracking? So there's that ongoing feeling that no matter where you're at, the bigger experience of other women who are going through it is kind of holding that, it's normalizing, it's holding that hope for you and that it's this kind of longer term support that it's like you don't have to do it all right away overnight. And and in fact it really encourages that like ongoing cycle check-in just of being like, okay, where are we at now, and it might be different and it's going to change, and that's normal, and that's actually great. Even if you hit these really rough patches, that's welcome. And yeah, I think it's, for me, that's a really, it was just such a much needed space, and I think out in the world is really needed, but particularly if cycle issues have become a real challenge for you, and you're at that point of like wanting more and feeling fed up with like this dragging you down. There is really like this hope to sort of figure out a way to actually help you reach your goals and reach your more true authentic sort of potential for being you. And that's the tricky part, is that sometimes like if your life isn't aligned with who you really are, you're going to have these like messy feelings coming up and redirecting you. But if you can stay with it, if you can stay the course and have support around you saying like, you're gonna get through it. It's really powerful, really transformational. So yeah, I would encourage, and I mean, I'm excited for other people to join because this is the beauty of like when we can be more authentic with ourselves and be more accepting and with each other, we actually feel just like accompanied and supported, even when we're not engaging all the time. It's just kind of, which is the opposite, I think, of a lot of society and a lot of other things that might be going on in our lives, whether it's online or in our communities. There's sort of a competitive or a critical or judgmental sort of
Mhm.
thing going on, or in our families or histories, right? That maybe we've got these inner voices that are very critical. So I think to offset all of that, it's really important. And when we're growing, we need support. When we're, you know, so whether it's like you're at a point of desperation or whether you're just at a point where you're like, I want to grow, I want to get bigger and better, and it's time. This is like a huge boost. Yeah. So
Laura, wonderful. I feel so incredibly grateful to just hear your experience. And I feel so grateful to have been a part of this journey with you and that we're are on this journey together to look at where you've been at that point of desperation and that this is how I need to be and the pain of that. Really hearing you speak today with so much authenticity and joy and connectedness with yourself. And it's not to say everything is perfect 100% of the time. And this is not the goal we're trying to get to. This is not a realistic goal, but just to really hear where you are today, how you're relating to yourself, the impact that has on your relationships, on your work, and just on your just sense of being in the world. I just feel incredibly grateful to hear that and really excited to see where the next part of your journey takes you. And thank you so much for sharing your experience with me, with the people who will be thinking about joining the program and who will hopefully see the both of us on the inside. So thank you so, so much, Laura. So much gratitude.
my pleasure. Thank you, Helena. I think like just again to finish up like for anyone who does want to watch and just personally, I just want to thank you because you really create this beautiful space. And it's like I was saying earlier, it is definitely about all the tools and about the strategies, and they're effective and they're really useful. But I think overall, like it's this real ability to just go with whatever comes up too, right? It's like it's not like you're just staying stuck on one issue, and really reflect what's going on, which gives the group the ability to kind of expand into things and be curious and learn more. And yeah, I think that's, and your experience of your own life helps make it really authentic. It's not just theoretical. It's really like lived and
Sure
yeah.
is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate that so much, and all that you're doing to reach out and create this community, because I think it's hard nowadays. We have these busy, busy lives, and especially if you're mental health and, you're just too tired to reach out and find connections, and often people's connections aren't really authentic. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a huge support to create this community. So
So happy to hear that. And so, yeah, just appreciative of hearing this from you. And thank you so, so much, Laura. Yeah, I really, really appreciate that. What an amazing thing to work alongside you with all of this that we've spoken about. So thank you.
thank you.